take a look. So depending on how accurate I want this to be, I can put ruler guides down, and I'm putting a ruler guide maybe at the top left corner of this, maybe the bottom down below here, and I can see that if I'd like to, I'm going to give myself a layer up here and just call it guides. And this way, if I want this part, I can also keep that selection. So here's show guides. So here I drag one down to this bottom, and here it is on that layer. So I'm just going to lock it so that way it doesn't travel through this section. But here's the fourth piece. I'll give it a title. Designs. And the reason you want to start to title these things, if it starts getting to be bogged down, you can at least get an idea of what's particularly happening. So here's a blank layer. Here's the image that I want to manipulate for a second. And here's the guide layer. So the guide layer is a light blue line. I click on it. I take the rotation tool and I put it right on the corner. Let's see if I can zoom this in. Right on the corner where the blue line and that part of the graphic intersects, and drag this part down a little bit. It doesn't give me a wireframe, but at least it straightens that out so I have a little bit more to take a look at. Go ahead and lock it and just get on this part of the designs. Now it's going to put the guide layer below it. So I have to take a look and see how I place this in here. I'm going to do one more guide, for example, and put a vertical right in the middle of this intersection of the letter M. So now I have at least a cross piece, and I can see that it was hand drawn, so I'm a little off. So I'm going to try to compensate for that on this section. So one side of this I could try to just draw the shapes, I could try to just draw the rectangle. If I do it from the center out of the center piece, that's going to give me the midpoint, and choose one or the other, left or right, to see which one I'm going to use, and that becomes the shape. And I'll just make it a yellow shape just so you can see it from a distance. But right now I'll just go to Object and hide that selection. And then I just want to do the inside part of it, so I tend to like to use this part that has the stroke right in there, so I'm just going to go beyond that section, I think, and come down to here. Maybe I'll come right down to the midpoint there. And this you can modify, but again, you're just trying to anticipate what that selection is going to be. Here's the stroke. So I'm just making it a little bit larger. Try and take a look at it like that. And while it's selected, just take the Reflect tool, Option, and click. Take a look at the preview and hit Copy. These are two shapes. I could join these together or just go ahead and outline them and treat them as shapes. So here's the object path, outline the stroke, give it a color so you can see the difference of it, and while it's still selected, just take the shape builder tool and connect everything together. So now it's one big piece. It overlaps enough. This part's a little off, so I take the direct selection tool, click on that point and drop it down, and now simply go to Object and Show All. The yellow shows up behind it because it was last selected there. And either select it, and I can use the Shape Builder or the Pathfinder. It's trying to throw all of them in there so at least you can decide which one you like the best. There it is as the alternate piece, and I can see that I missed this section. So all I need to do is just add a point to both sides here. Click A for the direct selection just to make it overlap, so I'm not worried about it separating. And like I said, you may come up with a better way, which is fine. It's just trying to show you this particular selection to it. And then this piece going across is easily done. I'm just going to use the pen tool. The Smart Guide tells me that I'm lining up horizontal. Come down to the midpoint and Shift key down to here. Shift and hit the X key so it switches it to the central part. Command let go of that part. And just increase this point. Make sure it's highlighted with the right tool. And just increase this. Okay. Now, this is a stroke, and depending, I'm going to make it into a path, or take the path and make it into a shape, so I'm outlining the stroke. Sometimes, maybe I would duplicate it before I did it, but you want to make sure that you have it for what you want to use it for as a gradient. So I'm going to Option and just copy that over and select all of this and group it together. Hide the grouping of it. So now I have this selection. So if I want to make it a different color, a thickness of a stroke, it all interacts as itself. So you can kind of modify things as they're going to happen and see what's going to be the best option. It's still a path on the outer edges of it, so you have that function to work with. If it's going to be a gradient, for example, let's put a orange on there. Right now, the first time through, each shape has its own gradient. If I select it and then drag a gradient across, it retreats itself as one piece, and you can backtrack out of that. But if this was a stroke, then I wouldn't be able to use the gradient, so you may duplicate it to give yourself a better option to work from. Okay? So take a look at that as a possible image for it.